What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Ball to Bowl series. As you guys know by now, the Ball to Bowl series is an opportunity for Come Home to sit down with men to talk about the real ups and downs of the hair loss journey, as well as the intersection with manhood. Like every episode, we have a special guest today as well. A good friend of mine, Jeremy Ward, we met a couple years back at the University of Michigan Raw School of Business. Go Blue. Jeremy, happy to have you today. Join us, man. Give the people some game and a little bit of introduction about yourself, bro.
Awesome. Thanks, Kenny. Well, first of all, just want to say thanks for having me on. Been a big fan, following Come Home over the last couple of years. Love to see it growing and love the Ball to Bold video series that you've been putting out. So I'm Jeremy Ward. I'm originally from Chicago. Lived there my entire life before coming to Ross and meeting Kenny and being in the same section there. Loved my time in Michigan. And after that, moved out to Denver here where I am now. And also, kind of following Kenny's footsteps, working in the startup space. So I'm not a founder, but I joined a startup after graduating, and we're in the connected vehicle space. So it's been pretty exciting times there, but definitely learning a lot from the startup life.
Nice. Jeremy, you went from Chicago to Denver. I know you've only been in Denver for a short period of time now, but what would you say is the biggest difference between the two?
I would say Denver is much more laid back. So I think Chicago is laid back compared to a city like New York or LA. But Denver is just kind of like to the extreme. People love the outdoors and the mountains here. So it's like in the summer, they're leaving on Friday afternoon to go and hiking and camping. In the winter, they're going skiing. And just everyone has like a very laid back vibe, which is really nice. You don't see too many people walking around in suits around Denver.
Love it, man. You mentioned growing up in Chicago, man. And, one thing that we like to discuss at Come Home is the concept and idea of home, because so many people can relate to that. So with Chicago being home to you, when you think about growing up or Chicago as home, what are some of the memories that kind of come back to you?
Yeah, so I always think of family. And so I kind of had an interesting upbringing where my parents were really young. So they were both living with their parents, my grandparents. So I was always with my grandparents, always with my cousins, pretty much every single day. So we had a big family as well. So like I have 20 plus cousins, always hanging out with them, just kind of doing whatever. And I think, a big part of that is just being yourself. And a big part of being home is being comfortable to be yourself. And, I think if your family brings that out, that's great. I definitely felt like my family did that growing up, which was really cool.
So that's awesome for you to say, Jeremy, because obviously that also has a parallel to the idea of coming home, right? Like, when you're kind of still dealing with that hair loss journey, you're not feeling like self because you're kind of trying to hide it. Maybe wearing hats a lot. You may not be feeling like self because you're not as confident in who you are. And the idea of coming home is like, hey, come home and embrace who you are. Be comfortable in your own skin, which has a very kind of, again, a parallel to what you just mentioned about being able to be at home, be around family, be very genuine to who you are in that space. So that's a super dope answer.
Yeah. And I think another thing that I'm thinking about as you're saying that is, and we can maybe get into this later too, is like a lot of times you're afraid to go bald and come home because you're worried about what other people think. But when you think back about being at home with your family, it's like they don't really care about your hair. There's a lot of other things that they care about you, but your hair is probably one of the last things on that list. So I think that's like an important lesson to anyone who's considering coming home in the future with their hair.
Oh man, you're getting deep right now, bro, because that makes me think about how the idea of home doesn't really consider the superficial, right? People in your home where you're comfortable at are a lot more focused on you internally. Like, who are you underneath the the haircut, the flashy clothes, whatever the material things. It's much more of a, okay, who is the real Journey? You know what I'm saying? And yeah, man, I think we're getting some good stuff, and we're just getting started here. So I'm loving it already. One thing I'll mention here before we get into your come home story, bro, is growing up in Chicago. Can you tell me about any memories regarding the Chicago Bulls? Were I feel like you were there around the time of the Jordan era, correct? So do you have any memories of watching the Bulls at all as a kid?
So I was born in 91. So it would have been a couple months after, no, like a couple months before they won their first championship. So I was kind of young, don't remember everything. I remember my family getting together for like every playoff game. And I remember just spending time knowing what was happening. I don't remember any moments. Probably, it's not great, but the first thing I remember is when he retired for the second time. So that's kind of like the start. And then I remember he came back and played for Washington. But I kind of missed out on that because I was so young. So last year with the Last Dance series, I was like, wow, all this stuff happened. Like, this is so great. Like asking like my family and friends about it who remembered it. And they're like, yeah, that actually happened.
Awesome way to relive it, man. Awesome way to relive it, bro. All right, dog. So Jeremy, you know why we're here. We see you today. I mean, clearly rocking the very smooth look. And, I actually remember the day you hit me up like, hey, Kitty, I think I'm going to come home. And I remember seeing you that next day, like, yo, dude, you look amazing. So obviously you're killing it now. But take us back a while, because obviously you didn't always look this smooth with the ball head. You know what I'm saying? There was a journey to get you here today. So if you could take us back to like, as early as you can remember, whether that's middle school or high school, what kind of hair did you have then, bro? And what did it mean to you?
Yeah. So hair is something that I struggled with my entire life. Even when I was younger and I wasn't balding or bald, I just never had great hair. It always was, it's kind of just like regular brown color. It's kind of smooth, kind of thin. I never really had long hair at all. Like, I feel like my generation, when I was in middle school, everyone was into like the emo and the punk and listened to like Green Day and had like the long flow. I could never do that. It just didn't grow like that. But I always kind of kept it pretty, not a crew cut, but like pretty short. And for a long time, I kind of had like someone in my family do it. My cousin would do it, or my dad would do it for a while. It wasn't until like high school and college when I started going to an actual barbershop. But I always just kind of like, I don't know if I'd say I hated it, but I just never like enjoyed my hair. And it was always just kind of like, oh, whatever. Like I wake up, wash it, dry it, never put anything in it, just go about my day.
Okay. What prompted the move to the barbershop? Was it just that you're just too old to having your family cut your hair, or was there something specific that you said, hey, I need to get a better haircut or something?
I think when I was in college and I started working like a real job, it's like, okay, I need to look like more presentable. I think that was around the same time when I started showing signs of balding. So I'm like, okay, maybe if I go to a professional, they can help me out and do something that'll look good. And it kind of like went from there. And I always hated the idea of like going and spending 30-40 bucks on a haircut like every month. So that was something that kind of made me like stick to doing it myself. I actually used to like cut people's hair when I was in high school. I had my clippers and I would do like the whole football team. Like people would be asking for like mohawks. Like one guy wanted like a lightning bolt like cut into his head.
You were nice with it, you were nice with the, wow, that's what's up.
They called me Barber J.
So wait, how did you pick up that skill? Was it trying it on yourself, or how did you pick that up?
Just kind of practicing, starting out easy. If someone wants a crew cut, that's easy. And then I started getting to the fades and doing like some of the scissor work. I was decent. I wasn't great, but I could do it.
Yeah, that's sick, man. That's sick. A little known fact. I like that, man. Okay. So you're at the barbershop now. You're going through, I'm assuming you said you're going through college now. And you mentioned the fact that might have been when you first noticed that, hey, like you were thinning a bit. Talk to me about, if you can recall, when you first realized it and the feeling that you kind of had.
So I don't remember a specific instance where I was like, whoa, I'm balding. It was always just something that I knew was going to happen. I people would say, like my mom would say, like, oh, like, you know, your hair's getting kind of thin back here. And it wasn't really noticeable unless you really looked, but it was just kind of something I always anticipated. And then from time I was 21 to the time I was 25, it just really kept on going until it got to be like very noticeable.
So you said you knew what was going to happen. This is because somebody on your mom's side, one of your uncles were bald? Was it because your father was bald? How did you know? Or you just knew because you can see it thinning, basically?
I just knew from my own hair. And that's the crazy thing, is my family doesn't really have a problem with it. My dad is a full head of hair. You know, my grandpas, my uncles all have decent hair. There's a few family members, like distant uncles that are bald, but I thought I would be in the clear, but I'm not.
Wow. Okay. So you really had nobody to kind of help you through this then. As you're going through it, there's no uncles, there's no father to help you there. It's kind of like you're out here on your own.
You know, 100%. Even with my friends, I look at them today, they all have great heads of hair. So I don't know if I was just, my house was under the power lines or something when growing up or what, but it was only me.
Okay. Okay. Sweet. So you're getting older. It's getting thinner for sure. You mentioned your mom is saying some things, or she had been kind of noticing it for a while. Did you have anybody else in your circle kind of pointing it out?
So my mom, I think, was the most worried for me. I think just because she didn't want to have a son who was bald, because that would make her feel older or something. My girlfriend at the time, my now wife, she always like knew about it and kind of like embraced it and, you know, said it doesn't really matter, which was great on her part. I kind of wish she would have been better and been just like, hey, cut it off right now because it looks bad, but she was sweet and didn't do that. So I don't know if I should be mad at that or not.
Okay. And primarily your mom, and she's saying these things. Again, your girlfriend at the time isn't saying anything. So what's your mom saying? Is that having any effect about how you're feeling about it? Or for the most part, because you know your girlfriend isn't really tripping about it, you're moving around and you're not as concerned about it? Or is it something that's kind of in the back of your head, like, man, something is not right?
Yeah, it's in the back of my head. And I think, you know, as it's going on, maybe I'm like 23, 24, I start looking into what are my options. And so I started trying a couple different products. I tried the one that it like makes your hair thicker. I think it's called Nioxin, okay. Primarily. And that, I mean, that worked, but I was losing so much hair that like, even though it looked thicker, I still had a bald spot. Probably the best product that I only used one time was, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a salt and pepper shaker of like hair follicles. And so I was actually at a barber and he's like, let me try this out on you and like, see how it looks. And so you like find the one that matches your hair color and you like spray it with hairspray and you shake it on your head. And it looked like I had a full head of hair. The problem is you take a shower and it goes away. So maybe I could have did it if I had like a big event or something, but it was just like, it would have been so high maintenance. But that was actually probably like the best product that I use, but it's probably just same thing as wearing a wig at that point.
Yeah, not a sustainable solution by any means. I had similar experiences with like hair fiber type things that it would look good when I got out the barber chair, but like I couldn't really work out with it because I would my hairline start dripping down my face.
Yeah.
I could take a shower with it, or I'm in the shower like trying to avoid, you know, my hair getting wet. So definitely solutions that can last for a day or two maybe, but past that, then you're having to figure out, okay, like how can I try to maintain this? And definitely wasn't easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you try some of these solutions. Some had, you know, varying results, but ultimately you kind of realize like, hey, none of these are going to be sustainable. So when did you stop using these, or did you use these products until you decided it's time to come home?
No, I ended up stopping for a couple of years before I came home. And actually, so, you know, after trying these products, I remember very specifically, there was one day I like was traveling for work and I came back and I was at my girlfriend's and I was like, hey, I'm going to shave my head tonight. Like, I'm going to do it. And she was like, okay, if you want to, that's fine. Do you want to like sleep on it to make sure? Like, it seems like a, a rushed decision. And so I'm like, all right, sure, I'll sleep on it, but I like really want to do it. And I had thought it through. And so I like text my parents this. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this. And then my mom was like, no, like, don't do it. Like, it's going to like not look great, whatever her reasons were. And then I think it kind of got in on actually, no, hang on. Sorry. So I ended up not doing it. And then a couple years later, the same thing happens where I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And so my girlfriend is now my fiance, and she's like, well, what if you just wait till the wedding? The wedding is coming up. Wait after that, after the pictures, then do it, because, why are you going to bring out a new look to the wedding when you've looked the same way for the last 28 years? So it kept kind of getting like pushed down. Finally, it was fall 2020. COVID had hit. I had been locked up. We're all locked up. I had like grown the beard out. I hadn't had a haircut in so long. I just had a big bald spot on the back of my head. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't see anybody. I'm all on Zoom calls. Like, let's just do this. And so I did it. It was the weekend before Thanksgiving 2020.
So this is funny to me, Jeremy, because now, like, looking at you now, and I'm sure you may feel the same way. Like, I mean, you're rocking the look. I mean, seamlessly, bro. Is it funny to you now to think back on this story and think about how, like, you're like, hey, I'm gonna do it, and you're like you're asking for all these different opinions, and some people are like, no, don't rush it. It's not time yet, and you're thinking like, why does so many people care so much? Like, I should have done this a long time ago. Do you have any of that feeling now?
I do. Primarily because I think I look better now than before. Like, I wish I would have done this a long time ago. I wish I would have done it when I was 21. And even my wife says that. She's like, now that you're bald, like, I like it a lot better. So I wish you would have done it earlier. So, I can't go back and change it, but to anyone who's kind of going through the same thing, I would say the biggest opinion that matters is yourself. And that's the one that you should really trust, because if you're ready to go and you're as committed as I was at that time, like, I wish I would have just followed through with it.
What about your mother now? What's her take on it?
So she was the first person I saw after I had it done. I went to a barbershop for it, and she was just, not used to it, but now she's used to it. I don't know if she'll admit that she likes it now, but I think that, she's used to it. I think she agrees I made the right decision.
Oh man, so this is good. I forgot to mention your initial reaction. You went to the barbershop, you get in that seat, you tell them, hey, like, chop it off. One, does the barber say anything funny? Is there a funny interaction between you two? And then what was your experience after it was over and you look in the mirror for the first time?
Yeah, so kind of a funny story about that. I had I'd always bounced around barbers. I never got anything like very special where I had to go back to the same guy. But leading up to my wedding, I was like, I want to, have a guy who's going to do the hair, going to do the beard, like have it down so I know what I'm going to look like. I can keep going back to him. So I found a guy I really liked. And it was like right before I went to Ross. So this was in Chicago. So I remember, like, when I was at Ross, I would like come back to Chicago sometimes and like go and get my haircut, not making a special trip for it, but like the holidays, or if I had to go home for a wedding or something, I would do it. And so I built up like a good relationship with this guy. And then I'm friends with him on Instagram. I was messaging him. I was like, hey, like, are you going to be in on like this day? I like booked it like a couple weeks in advance when I knew I was going to do it. I go in and he's like, all right, were you doing the usual? And I was like, no, we're going to take it all off. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, take it all off, like, bald. He's like, are you sure? And he asked me like multiple times. And I was like, yeah, like, let's do it. And so he did it. He did a really good job. Took it down, used the foil razor, and then used the actual blade as well. So it was super smooth, super fresh. And the first time I saw it, I thought it looked weird. Like, I was not used to it. Very strange. But over, the next week or two, like, I really liked it.
Yeah, man. I have a similar story in terms of like seeing it for the first time too, like, whoa. But ironically, the same day that I got it done, because in my head, women were gonna perceive me as older or like, oh, he's ugly or whatever now when I have this bald head. But my first reaction from women that day, where I was driving up to Charlotte, I just got stopped to get some food somewhere, and just happened to be two women at the cash register. And I ordered, and they were kind of like smirking and like laughing. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting jokes already. Only to find out, one, they're like basically say, hey, like my friend thinks you're cute. She's trying to find out how old you are. And I'm thinking they must probably think I'm super old. And they guessed younger than I actually was at the time. I was like, okay, well, here we go. So I think it's funny because a lot of guys, one, either have this perception that when they come home that, they aren't going to be attractive any longer, or they're going to be perceived to be older, et cetera. But a lot of the time, I'm sure sometimes, I won't say 100% of the time it doesn't happen. I'm sure sometimes it does happen, but I think a lot of guys are surprised by the reaction they get. And then also, like you mentioned, it's not always you come home and shave and immediately you're like, I love this look. Some guys have that, but there sometimes is a little bit of window of a time that you need to get adjusted to your new look. But eventually, whether it's 2 weeks, 1 week, or even a couple of months, you get adjusted to that look and you really kind of embrace it. And that's a powerful feeling at that point.
Yeah. I mean, that had to be a huge boost to your confidence, which I think like, I feel super confident after doing this. And I think, like you said, it's a big myth that you are going to look older. I also feel like I look younger. I feel like I look better. Other people think I look better. Like I've gotten tons of compliments on it. Actually, at the Section 1 event in the spring, like right before graduation, was the first time we had seen people in a while. And everyone was like, oh my God, Jeremy, like it looks so good. And I was like, this feels great. Like I love it. I'm glad I did it.
I love that, dude. I love that. Marcus came home recently too. I don't know if you've seen him recently, but he's joined the gang. So man, I love it, man. A lot of the brothers joining the gang, and it's a beautiful thing, man. And I think, as you mentioned, guys that are having this perception that, hey, I'm gonna look older. You got to stop and think about, hey, like you already look older when you're walking around with a bald spot. Like, it's not like you had a regular haircut, and maybe from that standpoint you might look older or younger. But when you're walking around with missing hair, I think people are automatically assuming like, okay, this guy's definitely old. He's already losing his hair. So when you shave it off and you have the clean look, it definitely kind of gives you a few years back, man. So that's amazing, bro. So the wife likes it, Section 1 likes it. Your mom is still holding off on giving us the approval, man. That's amazing. Tell me about the learning curve in terms of maintaining your look now, man. Like, I know it probably, because I remember you texted me like, hey, what product should I be thinking about using? What are you shaving with? What has that been like, bro?
Yeah, so it has been a learning curve. So like I said, I had the clippers already. So after the first time, I went fully shaved, it grew back, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to do this myself, but I didn't have the right equipment. So I was using just a zero on clippers, and it just wasn't great. I was like nicking myself. It wasn't really going as short as I wanted it to. So then based on your advice about the foil razor, I got one of those and I really liked that. But recently, over the last maybe like 5 or 6 months, I've actually just been using like a razor, nothing special. I think like a Gillette Mach 3, bought a huge box on Amazon, and I try to do that just to get as close as possible. I don't love the freshly shaved look. I actually probably like a 24 hours later when there's like a little bit of stubble, just to give my white head like a little bit more color. But yeah, I've been kind of like experimenting with different products. But I think I have my routine down for the most part. I like using for shaving the Jack Black shaving cream. So I just rub that all over my head, all over like wherever I'm shaving, and I just go sometimes in the shower, just go through with the mirror and go through it. And the first couple times using an actual razor was a little scary, had a couple nicks, but now I'm able to do it really quickly. So if I have a lot of like work for a week, I'll shave every single morning, just to look fresh the whole morning. If I don't, I'll let it grow out for a couple days, and then maybe I'll like trim it down slowly with like the zero, then the foil, and then the razor, just to get extra smooth.
Jeremy, did you have any surprises in terms of the maintenance involved of keeping the bald head. Like one thing that I was very surprised about after coming home was the high level of maintenance required in terms of shaving frequency. I'm like, yo, wait, I'm bald and I have to do this every other day or every day. Because I think growing up, you would, you see guys that are bald and like, hey, I know there's no hair. He has nothing to do. Like, but you don't realize, oh, wait, no, my hair still grows. It might grow a lot slower where it was thinning, but everywhere else, it grows back just as fast. And now I'm like, every day, like, are you serious? That was one of my biggest surprises. Did that catch you off guard too?
Yeah, that did. So you're definitely right. I have the same thing on the sides where that grows really fast. So, I probably could get away every other day, every 3 days if I wanted to. Sometimes if I'm on like vacation or something, I'll go a little bit longer. The thing that surprised me though was how much more it's about like skincare than actual hair care now. So different types of lotions, different exfoliating scrubs before and after shaving. It's almost like more sensitive than your face is, because I've been shaving my face for years and it's just, all right, you got the razor, got some lotion, you're good. But now it's like, I really want to make sure that I'm using like extra cold water to close all the pores, using the aftershave, all that stuff to make sure that like my head doesn't get irritated or get any different bumps growing there.
Yeah, man. One insight that I've gathered just by talking to so many bald men is that, hey, like after you come home, you really start to actually embrace much more of a self-care routine than you had in the past. Like a lot of guys come home and now they have all this extra skin to take care of. Now they're moisturizing more than ever before. Mm-hmm. Now they're guys that never exfoliated are exfoliating, et cetera. So I think there's definitely some kind of connection with coming home and actually becoming a lot more aware of your self-care needs and also kind of embracing like, hey, like I should want to take care of all of my skin. I do need to make sure I have a really good exfoliator, a really good scalp moisturizer, a face moisturizer, all those things. So I'm glad you said that because I know for certain my level of self-care definitely picked up after coming home.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the things that's more important is like I'm actually like reading what's in the different products. Like you want to kind of get something that's natural, has some natural oils in it, as opposed to just whatever cheap lotion they have at Walmart or whatever.
Wow. The growth. I love it. Man. All right, bro. We're going to go into the lightning round next. So in this round, I'm going to ask you a few questions and, just give me the first thing that comes to your head here, bro.
Okay.
So first out here, a lot of guys, like us, we don't really have the opportunity to switch up our hairstyle. We can't go from fade to grow it out, get braid. We don't really have any options. So we just have the coolest look out, but it's only one kind of look, right? So guys, because of that, many of us will like wear different hats, try to kind of switch it up a little bit, add some variety. What hats would you say is kind of like your go-to hat that you kind of like, whenever you want to like step out, you'll throw this hat on and kind of complete your look?
Yeah. So easy answer, a Michigan hat. I have a bunch of those. Those are my like kind of just like throw it on for walking the dog or whatever. But I have a hat that I really like. It's the Under Armour The Rock, Dwayne Johnson's brand. So it's black. It's got his logo on the front. But the coolest part is on the bill, there's like a vent that like airs it out. So sometimes you get like the sweat stains like right where the bill connects to that cap. It has vents there, so it like evaporates the sweat out. So I like wearing that one, especially this summer in Denver when it's been hot. No sweat stains, keeps you nice and cool. That's kind of like my go-to because it looks good with a lot of different things too.
Nice. Okay, I gotta check out that product, man. Shout out to The Rock, who's another ball man. We can't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ball, you gotta support ball, man. This is how it is, man. It's a community thing. So next question here, bro. We talked about your grooming routine just a bit. What would you say is kind of like that product that you need? Like you can't go without this specific grooming product.
I don't know if this is considered a grooming product, but I'm big on sunscreen. Anytime I go out, even like I'm sitting now kind of near the window, if I'm sitting here working for a few hours, I'll put sunscreen on just to kind of get that extra protection. So I found a good one. It's called Head Lube. It's SPF 50, I think. So it's pretty strong. So I usually bring that around. I have some in the car, like wherever I go. If I get out, I'll just put it on if I don't have a hat on. So that's kind of like my go-to everyday thing.
And SPF is super important, especially for bald, man. So that's an amazing call out, bro. Next, we have, man, the Mount Rushmore of bald men. There's a ton of iconic bald men that's kind of come through and showed off for us, man. You got Jason Statham, you mentioned The Rock, Stanley Tucci, Derek Jeter. The list goes on and on. Michael Jordan, you know, obviously grew up in the Chi. Kobe Bryant, before he passed away, RIP, you know, he came home. There's so many names that kind of like has led it. I think I think Ben Horowitz as well, one of the biggest VC investors out there, is also a bald man. So many of them, bro. If you had to think about some of the most iconic bald men that you can remember in your lifetime, bro, that would be that list of 4 that would be on the Mount Rushmore. Who would you put up there?
Yeah, so you gave me a preview of this question, and I honestly, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. What I will say though is that I have, like, since I've come home, I've noticed more people and like powerful people, athletes who are bald, and I've been paying more attention to it. I think though, if I had to name some, Michael Jordan is up there. Bruce Willis has always been kind of like this guy. Whenever I think of a bald, successful person, you know, Die Hard, you know, jumping out of planes and stuff, it's him.
John Travolta is also bald now. I think he's been bald for a while.
Okay. I think I don't know besides those two, who else? Let me like build out my list and then get back to you. I can do some research on that.
Say no more. So, by the way, that means Jeremy owes us 2 more names, guys. Owes us 2 more names. Last 2 questions here, bro. You mentioned, you got to this a bit earlier, but I want to double back on it a bit to make sure that, you know, whoever's listening to this, especially someone that may be kind of still dealing with hair loss, can get some solid advice from you. If you know somebody that's still listening right now, bro, and they're still dealing with that, you know, whether it's the receding hairline, whether it's the kind of, you know, the balding spot and the crown, what's the best advice you would give to that person, bro?
My best advice is to embrace it. Think about it. You're going to hear a lot of things from different people. You'll read things online about your hair is not going to grow back, or you have a lumpy head, it's going to be a problem. I thought those same things. It really wasn't an issue. You know, if you're thinking about it, you should definitely explore it. One of the things that I did, which is kind of goofy, but I like took a picture of myself and then I went into Microsoft Paint and I like matched up my skin color and like made it look like I was bald. And I was like, oh, that doesn't look too bad. Like it looks okay. So, I mean, if you're thinking about it at all, explore it, put the thought into it. You're probably going to be bald eventually. So you might as well do it on your own terms as opposed to waiting for it to happen in nature.
That's a word right there. It's going to happen at some point, no matter what. So it's kind of, I think Jeremy has a good point. You know, take control of your own faith here. You know what I'm saying? Don't just ride it out, because if you think you may look bad with the bald head, you got to also consider how you look with, you know, this bald spot that's just progressing year after year after year. Last question here, bro. Come home. You know, come home. We talk about it from a hair loss perspective. Kind of, you know, come home, join the family, embrace your natural evolution. But we spell it in French because it actually translates to English to mean like a man or as a man. And one thing we like to discuss on this Ball to Ball series is the idea of manhood. I definitely think manhood has the thought process around the concept of what it means to be a man has changed quite a bit over, you know, the last couple of decades. And I think us being millennials with social media, which creates the ability to have discourse really across the world almost. We've had the ability to kind of rethink what it actually means to be a man. So when you think about what it actually means to be a man in 2021, what is that answer to you, Jeremy? What does it mean to be a man, bro?
Yeah, so I think to me, it means doing the right thing while also being yourself. So doing the right thing in every part of your life, whether it's, you know, working hard at work, having a difficult conversation with somebody, you know, whatever it is, like making the good decision, doing the right thing, but then also like being yourself as well. Like, don't let other people influence you. Don't let, you know, the thoughts of others direct what your actions are going to be. You need to stay true to yourself, true to what you believe in. And I think if you do those 2 things, you'll be a very successful man. And I think that those things also tie into coming home, right? who cares what other people think about your hair? Be yourself, do what you think is right, and make the right decision to come home when it's time for you to come home.
Yeah, man, you get into that level of authenticity there, right? Talk a lot about that and just being genuine, bro. And I think when I think about what it means to be a man, it boils down to that same thing, right? Because if you aren't confident in who you are, I think it makes it very difficult to move around freely. And I think that limits your ability to influence others, limits your ability to lead others. Because I think people can see through, I don't want to call it fakeness, but if people can see someone that's not genuine, you can kind of like, you can kind of perceive that. And I think if you want to be a man, you want to be able to lead, you want to be able to kind of stand up and do the right thing for others, do the right thing for your community. You got to, it starts with you. And that level of authenticity that you just talked about, I think is one of the main drivers of your ability to be a man, and just happens to tie in to the idea of coming home and what we're trying to build here with the brand, man. So that's an amazing answer. Jeremy, if anybody's watching this right now, you know, and it's like, hey, man, like, this is a cool guy. I want to tap in with him, want to learn more about his journey on a side chat. How can they best contact you on social media?
Yeah, so probably best way is on Instagram. My account is Jeremy A. Ward, all together, no numbers or anything. So feel free to reach out. Happy to talk about my journey. Happy to support anyone else who's going through this as well.
That's a big thing about Come Home. We want to make sure we're allowing guys who are still struggling to find other men to connect with, to say, hey, like, I'm dealing with this. How'd you think about it? You get the full live story here, but if you do need to connect with Jeremy or anybody else that we've had on this video series, definitely feel free to reach out. And, you know, also as a brand, we're happy to facilitate the connections, man. Jeremy, this has been an amazing episode, bro. Thanks for joining us today to share your story, everything from growing up in Chicago with family, grandparents, being too young to really see what was going on there with Michael Jordan, coming up with the hair that you feel like you really didn't have much of a connection to, which to me probably made it a bit easier for you to embrace kind of, you know, ability to come home, to your mom, who we still have to get approval from one day. Thanks for sitting down with us today, bro. This has been a dope episode. And thanks for also, again, giving game to people who are watching this, man, because it's going to be very helpful for somebody. It's going to be very helpful. And hopefully that person feels the energy to actually embrace their natural evolution and actually decide to come home, man. So, dude, thank you again for joining us. And you have any final words, bro?
No. Thanks for having me. It was great to be here. And if anyone wants to talk about coming home, happy to do that with you.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us. And as we always say at the end of this, stay bold and stay bold, and we'll see you guys soon. Later.